Hey everybody, what we're going to talk about today is the idea of a walk-in, what people commonly refer to as a walk-in. I want to explain what it is I have learned, what I now know, in reference to what that is, how it happens, why it happens, and based on an experience I had with that, and also explain why the term walk-in I don't think should be used. And I'll go over that as to the term it really should be used, because actually what it is. It's not so much what people seem to think sometimes. Essentially what I got during the experience, I'll kind of cover a little bit of that first as to what happened. I was in bed. Suddenly woke up and my eyes were open, and I was viewing the room and the area around me as though I was viewing it for the first time. I also, at the same instant that was going on, felt that I was entering the body. So I was feeling it from two different ways simultaneously, that I was entering the body, I was in the body, but yet I was not the body. At that specific moment, I knew beyond any shadow of a doubt that I was not Ron. I was not the physical body. That this physical body is a vessel that we use when we operate on this world in reality, and that the I that we refer to a lot of times is simply an aspect of us that's in. Imagine that your body is like a car, and during the lifetime that car may have multiple drivers. And each of those drivers is going to operate the vehicle in a little bit different way. Each driver will purchase that vehicle when it's in a slightly different condition. And then how they treat the vehicle and whether they do maintenance, take care of things or not, is going to dictate as to how well that vehicle operates, and kind of actually the limitations of what is going to be in that vehicle, depending on the individual and the driver doing it. But at the same time, that the vehicle will have limitations, but you can also, depending on the driver, you can modify those limitations, kind of the way you can modify a vehicle. You can add new parts to it, you can jack it up, you can soup it up, you can do all kinds of things to make it something that it wasn't before. Basically, it'll still be a vehicle, but you can change it in ways that will make it to be able to do more. So as I guess as I was laying there and observing this, one of the first things I did is I started asking questions, and this was all going into my head. This wasn't an out loud verbal thing, even though I could kind of hear it through my head. Asking questions about the life I was now entering. I know one of the specific questions I first asked was, okay, in this life, do I have a dog or a cat or either one? And then, of course, I answered it, and then was kind of looking around and, okay, well, where is it? And again, you have to remember, all this was taking place in a whole lot less time than it's going to take to explain this. And as I started asking those questions, I started reviewing the memory of Ron. I started going through his life, at least what was there. There is a lot of gaps in his memory, and I have an idea as to why that happened, but there are a lot of gaps during his life in which there is virtually no recall of those time periods or things that were going on. And I'm even talking recent times, even more than a few years ago. What I was doing was reviewing his life, why the person you know is Ron, why that individual is as he is, the problems that he has, the reason that he has those problems, what is the root cause of those problems, and what needs to be done about it. And as I was observing these memories and going through it, I was completely detached from Ron. I was completely detached from the ego mind. There was no ego having anything to do with this overall analysis of Ron's life and what he was doing. So I was able to look at it completely objectively and see the things that had happened during his life that caused him to have particularly the physical issues that he has, and and other things. Just basically, I knew why he did the things that he did, and um, what led him to be who and what he was now. And it was a very interesting experience, to say the least. And for the next 2 days, when I was talking to Irene in the morning, I was referring to Ron as a completely separate individual. Him and his life and everything about him, his memories, because I knew that they were not mine per se, but that I had inherited them and observed them, and I was able to still be completely separated from what we call a physical body at that time. I still have a sense of separation of it, knowing that beyond any and all doubt that I am not Ron, I am not the physical body. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind of that, and I know that the moment I leave this vessel, I will go to another vehicle. I'll to pick up another vehicle. So there's no. I didn't have any fear of dying before, but now I guess it's even less of a concern, because I know it's not relevant to anything. So what I was gathering from this experience is that this may happen, and more than likely it does, multiple times throughout what we call our physical life, and probably happens more as an individual starts to awaken and allows you to have more experiences. And this is where I want to get into why we should not call it a walk-in. When you think of the term a walk-in, you're thinking of a sign in front of a haircutting salon. You're thinking of in front of a massage place, or some sort of a business in which an individual is out strolling down the road. They see this business, decide, okay, hey, let's go do that now. Well, when you refer that and apply that term to the aspect coming into a physical body, it would almost indicate that there is no plan, that it's simply a random event, that some spirit entity is walking down the road, suddenly sees this body, says, hey, I want to go into that one, and throws out the host that's already in the body. Well, that is crap. It does not happen that way. And again, I can tell you from my own experience beyond any doubt that it does not happen that way. It is not a random chance event. It is not somebody just walking in and it's stupid to use that term as a walk-in. What you actually have going on is you have an aspect exchange. There's only one soul, and that soul has multiple aspects, and those aspects are all a part of self, a part of that soul. So you're not having a new soul, you're not having a new spirit, you're having a new aspect of the same soul move into the body for that period of time in order to guide the physical experience through the experience that it is supposed to be having, the changes that need to be made. So what you're actually having is you're having an aspect exchange. It's an aspect of you. It is planned, it is set up, it is already known ahead of time that this is going to happen at a particular period. When you are ready for that next aspect to come in, it's kind of like as you're moving through grade schools up to high school to college, you're going to have different professors and different teachers as you move through the process, and that is essentially what we are doing here. Is we have different aspects move into the physical body to take over the driving of it at different time periods throughout the life. The majority of the time when it happens, people are not aware of it. I like to say it used to happen a lot when people had trauma, and that's what occurred. Now a lot of times it happens in a sleep, but it is not very often that an individual has an awareness of it happening. Now some people afterwards, they may have they talk about a personality change, they talk about different likes and dislikes, different knowledge and memories, and that can very well be a part of it. That feels reasonable to me because I've noticed a difference in Ron. He is different, and the reason that he is different is because the stages that he is going through, the experiences he is going through now, has to do with correcting the issues that he had in the past, the emotional issues that caused the problems that he's having or was having now. And I am here in him to help redirect that path and to make changes. There was another experience that happened within the first 2-day period, having to do with the healing process and other things going on and how it happens, and maybe I'll get into that. We'll see. But the idea is the aspect that moves into you is an aspect of you. It's not an aspect of the physical person, because remember, the physical person is the vehicle. It is not who and what you are. The aspect that moves into you is the driver of the car. And you have multiple aspects throughout your entire existence. Most of the time, as I said, you're not even going to notice the change. Most people wouldn't be able to handle the knowledge of that because they may not be ready for it. I was given this opportunity this time to be made fully aware. I can't say fully aware. I was aware of what I was aware of as it was happening. I cannot be aware or knowing what it is I don't know or what may else have gone on or what the process all involved beyond what I experienced. But I did experience a good portion of what it was. And I can tell you that there is a full cooperation with the aspect coming in and the aspect going out. And there's a lot to talk about the idea that how they're going in and they start fighting, and that's bullshit. It's not, it doesn't happen that way. You're not fighting it. The person is doing that because they have their own issues going on. It has nothing to do with that aspect change, and nothing can move into this body, this driver's seat, that is not already set up to experience. The other aspect doesn't want to hang around and try to teach or do anything else. It doesn't need to, because you do a full review before you, as you're moving into that, into the body as the aspect moves in. Which brings up another point that I got, is that the people who have what they call a near-death experience, what I've got is that what they're really having is an aspect exchange. They had trauma, they have what they call a near-death, and a lot of times they end up having some sort of a review. That review is the new aspect moving into the new body, like a new driver, coming in, looking at the maintenance history, looking at the vehicle, see what was done to it, how it was taken care of, and what needs to be done. So near-death experience, I think, is simply an aspect exchange. Because a lot of times the people are changed after they have this, but they don't understand why. They think it had to do with near-death. And again, maybe we did that. It's not even relevant to death or not death. It's simply, it's another aspect of you moving in, and you may have been aware of the transition process as it was going on, but you had no understanding or idea of what was going on because you weren't ready for it at that time. So one of the things that I also got out of all this in experience is that the human aspect, or the human body that we move into, the majority of humans are emotionally deprived. The issues and problems that you have within the human body, within the struggles of your life, have to do with the emotional issues that you have not dealt with, that you have not chosen to accept. And I know that was a very big thing for Ron, and I'm not going to go into a lot of details on it because it's not important. This is not about Ron so much. It's about the experience and what I learned from that experience. But he had a lot of emotion, lack of emotion issues, and it caused the physical ailments, the issues that he's having now. And from what I'm gathering is, and his life was relatively good from my memory as to what other people may be talking about, and yet even his was pretty messed up. He messed himself up pretty good emotionally during the course of his life, and it took a toll on him, and we're in the process of fixing that now. But the idea is, one of the things that also came from this is that we, as humans, we have a tendency to attempt to substitute using our senses, our sense of feeling, touch, smell. So we have a tendency to use our senses versus getting in touch and feeling and dealing with our emotions. We have a tendency to externalize versus internalize. And that's one of the things that causes a lot of issues with this. I was getting that if you have an individual who is what they call an adrenaline junkie, someone who is constantly trying to push themselves to their physical limits, someone who is constantly wanting to experience new physical challenges, they are doing that because they are not willing to feel emotionally. they are trying to substitute it. And you will get some feeling. You're going to get an emotional high out of it if you succeed in what you're doing. So you're going to have some emotional response, but it's going to be extremely limited. So we're substituting the physical outside experience for an emotional internal experience. So if you know somebody like that, and again, you may know them, maybe to you, maybe they're not, but it might be something you want to just look at the individual if you know them well enough to see, do they have a good emotional connection with themselves? Do they acknowledge their emotions? Do they deal with them? Do they handle them as they come along, or do they attempt to hide them? And do they want to go involved in the physical? Because we have a tendency to substitute the external physical in place of our emotional basis, and that's what causes an awful lot of arguing and problems. I mentioned that I was talking about earlier. There's a healing process that. Let's go to something else. The idea is that when we come in as spirit, we know that we are capable of doing anything. We can move from reality to reality. The problem is when we come into the physical body, we have agreed to certain limitations. Example, if you're going to play a game, say you're going to go play Monopoly, there are rules to the game of Monopoly. However, it isn't until later on that you start to understand that you can bend, manipulate, and even change some of those rules as you go along, because you have that option to do so. But in the beginning, you're stuck, and that's why most of us here can't do the spiritual things that we are capable of, the limitless, is because we have accepted the rules coming in here, the programming of the brain. The brain is programmed, and the belief systems it has are the limitations of what we can do, no matter how much we may think or know what we can do spiritually. As a spirit, we do have the limitation of the physical illusion that we are in, until we are able to change the beliefs and the programming of the physical illusion in order to modify it. And we can do that, and I'll go into that in another video in reference to manifesting and creating and so on, and how that happens, and taking into account the physical and the mental. So anyway, well, that's one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to see if we can get people to change the term walk-in, which is random chance. To me, it just does not fit, because I know it is not a random event. Change it to the concept of an aspect exchange, because it is us. We are aspects, and we're going to have multiple aspects coming in. It's an exchange. The exchange indicates a cooperation between both parties, and that's what's going on. So again, that's how I'm going to be referring to it, as an aspect exchange versus the concept of a walk-in. And as I said, it may happen multiple times throughout our life as we go through different phases, because each aspect of us is going to be able to maybe have more and more expertise in something as it goes through, and is able to lead through the physical experience of each of those aspects. And whether you have personality change, I think that's inevitable to a certain extent. And as I said before, I've known there's a change in Ron, in particularly his emotions, and dealing with them and facing them, and his attitude and how he's dealing with other people. There's a difference in there. I do have his memories, and at least the memories that he has, and for all aspects to others, I am Ron. But it's like having a car. It's the same car, but now I have a different driver, so the car's going to handle a little bit differently than it did before. I think that about covers it for now. Thank you, everybody.